It began with a conversation, polite, smiling, and wrong. A weekend getaway that looked ordinary until the small talk turned sinister and every grin hid something sharper. Jordan Peele didn't just make a horror movie, he built a psychological trap, one that doesn't end when the credits roll. It's a story about control disguised as kindness, and fear buried beneath civility. A nightmare where the real monster is the system that smiles back. This is the film that redefined modern horror, and forced America to stare at its reflection. These are 20 weird facts about Get Out. Number 1. The idea for Get Out started with a joke, but it became a revelation. In Eddie Murphy's 1983 stand-up special Delirious, he mocked white horror characters who hear a ghost whisper, "Get out," and decide to stay anyway. Jordan Peele loved that joke. Years later, it planted a seed. What if a horror film actually listened to that warning? But the phrase wasn't just literal, it was a message. Get out of comfort, of denial, of systems that smile while they suffocate you. Andre screams it once before being silenced, but the echo lingers. It's both a warning and a wake-up call. The characters can't escape their traps, but we can. That's Peele's final twist. Get Out isn't just about survival, it's about awareness. Once you've seen the sunken place, you can't go back. Number 2. Peele designed Get Out like a cinematic onion. Every scene hides another meaning. The garden party sequence? It's a direct visual homage to 1975's The Stepford Wives, a film about conformity and the destruction of individuality. The hypnotism chair? A wink to 1962's The Manchurian Candidate. Even the sunken place mirrors the haunting isolation of 1999's Being John Malkovich. But beyond film references, Peele filled the script with coded language. Every camera movement, every costume, every word of dialogue carries a shadow. Peele said, "It's not just one movie, it's every horror movie America's ever lived." Number 3, Peele treated Get Out like a mystery woven into a nightmare, sprinkling breadcrumbs for rewatchers. Remember Rose eating Fruit Loops separately from the milk? It's not a quirky habit, it's segregation, color divided from white. The silver spoon Missy uses? A weapon of class privilege. The black mold on the basement door? A literal warning sign. Even the film's color palette tells a story. Chris's muted tones versus the Armitage's sterile whites and blues, and the photos of Rose's past boyfriends reveal something crucial. Each face represents a life stolen, a consciousness erased. Peele said he built the movie like a visual crossword, where every shot meant something. Fans have since uncovered dozens of subliminal details. So many that Peele once joked, "People found stuff I didn't even mean to put in there." That's how deep the horror runs. It rewrites itself in your head. Number 4, costume designer Nadine Haters built a secret narrative into Rose Armitage's clothing. At the start, she wears soft colors, rose pinks, whites, denim blues, visual shorthand for innocence and warmth. But if you look closer, her clothes gradually mirror the American flag, red, white, and blue. Peele confirmed the symbolism. Rose doesn't just represent a girlfriend, she represents a system that weaponizes trust. Her all-American look hides predation. The final costume, white turtleneck, beige riding pants, was deliberately clinical.
Get him.
By the time she's hunting Chris with a rifle, Rose has shed all traces of humanity. Haters said Peele told her, "Dress her like the embodiment of privilege, pure, polished, and hollow." It's one of the film's most subtle visual tricks. The monster never looks like one until it's too late. Number 5, you might not consciously notice it, but Get Out is alive with whispers, voices haunting the edges of its soundtrack. Michael Abels, a classically trained composer who had never scored a film before, wrote the film's main theme, Sikiliza kwa Wahenga, Swahili for listen to your ancestors. Its choral lines repeat warnings like run and listen to the truth, echoing through Chris's subconscious as he's hypnotized. Peele said he wanted the score to feel like ancestral warning music, something spiritual pushing through the fabric of the film. Get Out doesn't just scare your eyes, it seeps into your bloodstream. The horror comes with a heartbeat. Number 6. When Chris and Rose hit a deer early in the film, it looks like a routine horror beat, but Peele had something deeper in mind. The dying animal mirrors Chris's buried trauma, watching his mother die after a hit and run. Peele called it the moment where the real and the metaphor collide. Later, when Chris explores the Armitage basement, the mounted deer head becomes a symbol of vengeance. A victim literally turned into decoration. Critics also connect the deer motif to America's history of racial language, noting that buck was once used to dehumanize black men. Whether intentional or not, the association sharpens the film's subtext. When Chris kills Dean Armitage with those antlers, it isn't just poetic justice, it's history striking back. Number 7. Jordan Peele hides in Get Out, not as an actor, but as a voice. The crying deer that Chris and Rose hit, that sound is Peele himself, layered and distorted. He wanted the creature's death cry to feel human. It's a small but haunting Easter egg, the director literally giving his voice to the film's symbol of pain. Peele joked later that he wanted to scream for the deer. The sound team processed his recording through filters meant for animal distress calls, amplifying its realism. The result is almost subconscious. You don't notice it unless you're listening closely. But once you know, it's hard to unhear. Peele's own scream lives inside the movie, buried in the first few minutes, calling from the woods like a warning. Number 8. Before Peele rewrote the finale, Get Out ended in tragedy. Chris kills Rose, the police arrive, and instead of his best friend Rod, it's real officers. They arrest Chris on sight. Cut to prison. Months later, Rod visits him through glass. Chris doesn't protest, doesn't cry. He just says, "I stopped them." Then the camera drifts away as the truth dies quietly behind bars. Peele called it the true ending at the time, a mirror of America's cycle of injustice. But when the 2016 election happened, he sensed the country's mood shift. People were scared, hopeless, so he rewrote it. He gave audiences the version we know. The TSA car, the burst of laughter, the release. Not because he wanted a happy ending, but because he wanted us to breathe. After 2 hours of tension, Get Out let us live. Number 9. Creating the sunken place was one of Peele's biggest technical and symbolic challenges. It had to look endless yet feel personal, like being trapped inside your own mind. The crew filmed Daniel Kaluuya, suspended by a harness in front of a deep black backdrop, lit only by one overhead light symbolizing unreachable freedom. To suggest drifting, small particles floated through the beam in slow motion while the camera dollied away. Cinematographer Toby Oliver shot with minimal fill, so no background was visible. Composer Michael Abels underscored the scene with low, breath-like vocal textures. Sounds you feel more than hear. Peele called it a trap made of silence. The goal wasn't spectacle, but sensation. Viewers don't just watch Chris fall, they feel it. The sunken place became a metaphor for powerlessness, seeing the world above you, but unable to reach it. Number 10. That eerie opening sequence, Andre walking through a quiet suburban street only to be snatched into a white car, sets the stage without a single word. Peele modeled it after classic horror openings like 1978's Halloween, but flipped the script. Instead of a masked killer chasing a helpless white teenager, we see a black man isolated in a neighborhood where he feels out of place, hunted by unseen danger. The white car plays like a modern Knight Rider, a predator cruising suburbia, an image many critics compare to America's own history of racial terror. Peele didn't want a jump scare. He wanted a cultural gut punch before the title card even appeared. Number 11. Jordan Peele is a lifelong Stanley Kubrick fan, and Get Out hides a chilling nod to The Shining that most viewers miss. While Rod calls around trying to find Chris, listen closely during the airport scene. In the background, a public address quietly announces Flight 237. Horror fans will instantly recognize the number. Room 237 is the infamous haunted room from The Shining. Peele confirmed the reference was intentional, calling Kubrick's film a masterclass in psychological dread. The Easter egg isn't just fan service. It mirrors Get Out's themes of isolation and madness. Both films trap their protagonists in environments that appear safe but are quietly suffocating. It's Peele's way of tipping his hat to horror history and warning us to look closer. Number 12. Jordan Peele didn't find his composer through Hollywood. He found him on YouTube. While searching for a sound that captured both horror and heritage, he stumbled across a piece called Urban Legends by Michael Abels. Peele said the music felt like horror and history colliding. He reached out immediately. Together, they built a sound that redefined what horror could feel like. Ancestral voices whispering warnings, gospel tones twisted into dread, rhythm and fear intertwined. Abel's haunting composition didn't just support the story, it became its soul. A YouTube discovery ended up changing the sound of modern horror forever. Number 13. When Get Out hit theaters, one of its most vocal supporters wasn't a critic or filmmaker. It was Chance the Rapper. The Chicago-born artist was so blown away by the film that he decided everyone needed to see it. He went online and announced he had personally bought out multiple screenings in Chicago area theaters so people could watch it for free. "Just pull up with an ID and enjoy the movie," he tweeted. It wasn't a sponsorship or promotion, just genuine love for the story. Chance called it an instant classic, urging his followers to experience it spoiler-free. His gesture helped turn Get Out from a buzzworthy indie horror film into a nationwide cultural event. Number 14. The marketing for Get Out was as deliberate as its plot. Universal Pictures cut the trailer to look like a straight-ahead slasher. Quick cuts, screams, jump scares. Peele approved the misdirection. He wanted audiences expecting monsters, not microaggressions. He later described the movie as a story where fear creeps in through everyday conversation. Even the tagline, "Just because you're invited doesn't mean you're welcome," works as a double bluff, hinting at both social exclusion and literal captivity. When the real film was released, quiet, tense, psychological, viewers realized they'd already been hypnotized by its marketing. It wasn't false advertising. It was thematic conditioning. Number 15. Get Out didn't just change cinema, it reshaped education. In 2018, UCLA launched a college course inspired by the film titled The Sunken Place, Racism, Survival, and Black Horror, created by writer and scholar Tananarive Due. The class explored how Get Out redefined horror as a reflection of racial trauma and survival. Students studied Peele's film alongside works like 1992's Candyman and 1968's Night of the Living Dead, analyzing how fear can expose systemic truths. Peele even visited the course in person, surprising students during a lecture and discussing how he built horror out of real social anxieties. The class became a cultural milestone, proof that Get Out wasn't just a movie, it was a movement powerful enough to change the syllabus. Number 16. Jordan Peele didn't just reference Alfred Hitchcock, he absorbed his philosophy of fear. Hitchcock's greatest trick was transforming everyday objects into instruments of suspense. The kitchen knife in Psycho, the glass of milk in Suspicion, the birds in The Birds. Ordinary, harmless things that suddenly felt predatory. Peele carried that torch into Get Out, turning symbols of civility into weapons. Missy Armitage's silver spoon becomes a psychological knife, stirring hypnosis instead of tea.
You think it was your fault?
The fragile teacup, once a gesture of comfort, now enslaves minds. Even Chris's chair echoes Hitchcock's shower scene. Stillness turned to terror, safety to a trap. The sound of the spoon clicking replaces composer Bernard Herrmann's shrieking violins, a polite horror vibrating under fine china. Peele didn't just honor Hitchcock, he modernized him, proving that true terror hides not in darkness, but in daylight civility. Number 17. By the time Get Out began production, Jordan Peele was terrified, not of what he'd written, but of how it might be received. A horror film about liberal racism was uncharted territory for Hollywood. And Peele knew if it bombed, it could kill his directing career before it started. He'd written the film in secret while still doing sketch comedy of the Key and Peele TV show, rewriting over a dozen drafts alone in his apartment. On set, he reportedly watched playback obsessively, terrified of missteps. "If this doesn't work," he said, "they'll never let me do another." But once the film premiered at the Sundance Film Festival in 2017, the silence after the credits wasn't rejection. It was awe. Then came the applause, standing ovation, the kind that shakes the room. Peele had cracked the code, horror that tells the truth. Number 18. Get Out wasn't just a hit, it was a redefinition. Peele's blend of psychological dread, racial metaphor, and satire created a new subgenre he called social horror, where society is the villain. He said he rejected calling it straight horror because the scariest monsters are the ones we live with. Suddenly, horror wasn't just about boogeymen, but about the systems people refuse to see. Filmmakers from across the world took notice. Studios began greenlighting more smart horror, paving the way for movies like Hereditary, Midsummer, and Us. Peele didn't just make a film. He built a mirror, then forced everyone to look into it. What they saw staring back wasn't a ghost. It was themselves. Number 19. In 2018, Get Out did something no one thought a horror movie could. It won an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. Became the first black writer in history to take home that award. When he stepped on stage, visibly shaken, his speech wasn't about triumph, it was about persistence. He said he'd stopped writing the script 20 times because he thought it was too weird, too risky, too real. But he kept going because he knew someone needed to hear it. The win sent shockwaves through Hollywood. For decades, horror had been treated as a lesser genre. Cheap thrills, blood over brains. Get Out shattered that perception. It proved horror could be intellectual, emotional, political, and still make you scream. Peele didn't just win an Oscar. He opened a door that may never close again. Number 20, when Get Out hit theaters, no one expected it to become a box office phenomenon. Produced by Blumhouse Pictures for just $4.5 million, the film exploded into a worldwide success, grossing more than $255 million, a staggering return on investment that stunned Hollywood. It wasn't just profitable, it was historic. Peele became the first black writer-director to earn over $100 million with a debut film. Studios quickly took notice, realizing that audiences would turn out for original horror that said something real. Blumhouse founder Jason Blum called Get Out a miracle, proving you didn't need stars or spectacle, just vision. One indie horror film, made on a shoestring, and built on truth, reshaped the economics of fear forever. In the end, Get Out made audiences laugh, gasp, and squirm, but more than that, it made them see. It proved that horror doesn't need shadows or blood to terrify, just the truth, spoken softly enough to sound polite. And maybe that's why it still lingers, because we've all visited the sunken place. Some of us just didn't know what to call it. If you enjoyed diving into the story behind the screams, don't stay silent. Like, subscribe, and join us as we keep uncovering the dark secrets buried inside horror cinema's brightest smiles. This is Iconic Frights, where every nightmare has a story.